introducing you today to Adam Walmsley. Apologies. So I always miss the L. My apologies, Adam. Always. So look, this is part of our weekly, at the moment, weekly webcast. This is a great one. It's going to be hosted by Adam. So hello, Adam. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good. Adam is a civil infrastructure technical specialist at Autodesk. What that really means is that Adam is fully immersed into the civil side of what Autodesk are about, so the civil industry and everything attached to that. It's great to have him on board as a support agent for you, the customer, and definitely us as a supporting mechanism to you, the customers. So great to have Adam on board. Look, Adam actually has a great history in the industry, 12 years structural design in the civil construction industry, very much focused on digital engineering and handling all the challenges that are associated with that and moving the industry forward into sort of a digital design construct zone. Officially, it says here, Adam's got lots of roles, but design, document, construct, civil infrastructure projects is really what he focuses on, and certainly about connecting all the workflows. So really about building the systems up so you end up with one source of truth and you can move that right through all the phases. And it says here, Adam's passion lies in computational design processes and helping automate and improve design. At the end of the day, just say the word dynamo and you have Adam for a good hour. Talk to you all about automation. Loves it. So Adam, I haven't done you any favors introducing you, but welcome to this webcast. Everybody, you're going to see one of Autodesk's solutions surrounding data management, surrounding taking your project from its infancy right through construction and not losing data. So this is really about data management, data centralization, everything talking through one source of truth. Hopefully you've all hopped in with an interest in data collaboration, data sharing, cloud sharing of information. And Adam's going to show us what BIM 360 can do to help on that front. So Adam, I'm going to hand over to you now, and I'm going to dutifully mute myself.
Cool, thanks Shane. That was a really nice introduction, but yes, if anyone wants to talk about Dynamo, I'm all ears. It's definitely one of my passions when it comes to what we do with our tools. So thanks everyone for joining today's webinar. My name's Adam, as Shane said. Yep, I'm a technical specialist with Autodesk. I've been with Autodesk for just over a year now. And today we're going to talk about BIM 360 fundamentally. So we're going to look at how we sort of administer or set up a BIM 360 project. If you're really new to the platform, you will get a bit out of that. Then we're going to dive into design collaboration for Civil 3D. So that's the storing of models in the cloud and how they can be accessed from remote locations and things like that. And then we're going to finish off by looking at some of the processes that we can run on some of those documents that live inside of BIM 360 after information has been uploaded. So think of this as like a bit of a story. So setting up your BIM 360 hub, moving into the design phase, and then executing some processes on the documents that you are publishing to the web. So I won't spend too long talking about what BIM 360 is fundamentally, but this is the platform in sort of one slide, and we're really focusing today on this project data sort of vertical or horizontal piece that sits beneath all four of the design verticals. And then we're also going to be focusing on the design module here. So I won't talk too much about anything else today. So if you are brand new to BIM 360 and you want to know more information, you can always reach out on Google and search BIM 360 help. If you jump to that website there, there is a really nice visual workflow page to help you get set up. So if you have just acquired a BIM 360 license, you can work through this web page, and you can click these buttons to sort of help you move along your journey, whether it's signing into Autodesk for the first time, accessing BIM 360 for the first time, all the way through to setting up projects, and moving on from there. So where we're starting today, where I'm starting today, is really in this setting up roles, setting up an account, and then moving through the setup of a project into the design phase. Before I start, I will say that if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A box at any time. I should have mentioned that during my introduction, but I've just forgotten. I've allowed some time at the end to answer questions. So yeah, please feel free anytime, jot them down in the Q&A window. So moving on, these are the 4 verticals that we have to BIM 360 design, but we're really only focusing today on the document management vertical and the design vertical. It's also worth mentioning that the document management module is underpinned across all 4 verticals, and that becomes important when you start to get into the coordination and the build phase of BIM 360. So let's have a look at where we start. So I want to start with the difference between project admin and account admin. And for me personally, when I first started using BIM 360 a few years ago, I had trouble wrapping my head around it, and it did cause me a little bit of grief, I'll be honest. But the way to explain it in its most simple way is that account admin is all of the settings that you can, I suppose, change in relation to your company or your organization. That image on the left sort of shows that. And then project admin is everything related to individual projects that you have set up in that cloud platform. So let's have a look at some account admin stuff. So if you open up the browser for the first time and you jump into BIM 360, you'll see that you have the menu bar here. If you select that, you get a drop down which shows you the modules that you have the ability to access. So if you jump into account admin, this is how we can start to set up your account for the first time. So first thing you want to do is add a project. Pretty straightforward. You can follow the steps here. It's not too complicated. You give the project a name, define its type, and then you have to come in to start activating services. Now, this is not a mandatory workflow, but it is really good practice. What you can do is you could set up a template project that has your folder structure defined, as well as roles and permissions defined for users in your organization. And you can use that template project to copy those settings across every time you start a new project. And the beauty of this is it's really helping standardize the folder structure of every single project that you set up in BIM 360. As I said, it's not mandatory, but it's really good practice. You also need to assign a project administrator, so someone in your organization that will be managing the project. The next thing you need to do is activate services. So these are the different modules of BIM 360. And as I said, we are working today with document management and design collaboration. So they are the only 2 we are going to have access to at this point. From there, you can then create companies in your hub. So if you are a general contractor, you might have a lot of different subcontractors or sub-consultants that you want to add to your hub. If you're an engineering company, you might not have anyone else, just yourselves. It just depends. It's very flexible and very unique to everyone's circumstances. Once we have got some projects set up and some companies, we can then invite members. Now, this is important. We are bringing members into your hub, into your company. This is not necessarily adding them to a project. And we'll get into bringing them into a project shortly. But there's a lot of flexibility here around how you want to invite members into your hub. But the most simplest way is through the use of an email address. Once you start to invite some members in, you can define their company that they work for if that's necessary, and also their role, their default role. Now this plays into some automation and some really nice features that BIM 360 has around what roles do to the setup of a project and things like that. So when we look at roles, you'll see here that I have a BIM manager, and he is an admin for a project, and he's also an admin for the document management module that I've got inside the red square here. Now, this bunch of settings that you can see is default for every single project that is created. So you can really, in an automated fashion, assign people, assign different people, different levels of access to projects, and it's customizable to suit your needs. So this is just how Autodesk gives it to you out of the box, but it can be customized to suit based on any different role that you might have. It's worth mentioning that if you see the gold cog, they are a project admin. If you see the blue person, they are a member, and there's differences there around access and what you can and cannot do. In the settings tab of the account admin area, you can see who your account administrators are, which is very important to providing access to other people into your hub, and also the account ID. If you have to do any troubleshooting or any support relating to your Autodesk hub, you will often have to provide your account ID. And I get this question quite a bit. People ask, how do I access the account ID? And that's where it is. So let's get into project administration now, and really focusing on individual projects that you have set up in an organization. So from our menu bar, we can select project admin. And what you'll notice is we have our project name here in red up the top. Now, if you were to click that down arrow, you'll see a full list of all of the projects that you are a part of. If you are an administrator, you'll see everything. If you aren't an administrator, you will see the projects that you've been invited to. Now we can start to add members into the project. So we've added members at an account level. And now once we have a project set up, we can add members to that individual project. So you can see here, I've added Sam as our BIM manager. And by default, he has been given the project admin, project admin rights as per that template that we had used previously in the account admin area. We've also assigned some companies for these guys here. And then next tab across is the companies. You can see which different organizations you have working inside of your project. That's really good from a management perspective, just to see how many people are in fact working in this one particular project from the different organizations that you might be collaborating with. Services tab shows the different modules that you have activated on a project. So we had set up the document management and the design collaboration modules at the start. You can now activate them in here, and you can assign different administrators and remove people's access and things like that. So getting now into folder management, we're getting into the BIM 360 docs module itself. So this is sort of now getting right into the meat of docs. So the first time you open up a project, it'll be pretty empty. And I've gone through here, and if you click these ellipses, the three blue dots, you get this menu here, and you can do a range of things, such as adding subfolders, which is what I've done to create this folder structure that you see here on the left. You can rename, you can move folders, you can delete folders, and you can also subscribe to folders, which is really interesting. So if you're a project manager or someone in a document control position or something like that, you can select to receive a notification, an email notification, when something has changed on a folder. So let's say let's say you have a folder called outgoing, and someone drops some documents in there, you'll be notified that, hey, someone's put some drawings in the outgoing folder. That must mean they're ready to be issued. I can go in and have a look. Really nice way of working, especially when we're all remote as we are at this point in time. So once you have set up your subfolders, you can see this part of the window looks a little bit like Windows Explorer. You have the columns, that have name, title, version, things like that. You also have the ability to add more and turn off the ones that you have out of the box from Autodesk, but you can also add some custom ones. So 3 types of attributes that you can add. One can be a text field, one can be a date picker, and you can also have a drop-down menu. So I'm going to use a drop-down menu here. I've created my attribute called checked by. So, let's say someone is checking a whole series of drawings, and they can select from the drop-down menu, select their initials. This is just one example of, sort of constraining people. You could let them type in their names and their initials, but then if people make mistakes, then when you're trying to do some reports on this sort of stuff, you might get some inconsistencies. So yeah, just showing how you can use a drop-down menu to constrain the attributes that you want to be assigned to different documents inside of BIM 360 docs. Worth noting that in the subfolder system that I have created, as I move down into that shared civil folder on the left, you'll see that that checked by column and that attribute has been inherited down through the subfolder list. So if you were to create an attribute at the top level, it will be inherited automatically as you create more subfolders and move down from there. So let's have a look at permissioning on folders. So this is really about providing access to different people, whether it's at an organization level, at a role level, or at a user level. So hitting the ellipsis, we can jump over to permissions, and you'll see here that Sam and I both have full admin access because we are project admins, but you can add people by name or by role or by organization. In this case, I'm adding 2 companies to some permission to control their permissions, and I'm going to give them a certain level of access. And the good thing about this is that every single person as an individual that is working for that company has that level of access given to them. You don't need to go and add individual names. You can control it from a higher level. Same thing from a role. So let's say we have some executives in the project. We only want them to be able to view things. As soon as someone new comes into the project that is an exec, they will only have those view-only rights to that folder. There are 6 levels of permissions, starting at its most basic as view-only, working your way down until you get to the ability to start to edit documents, so deleting things, renaming, and then at number 6 is full administration rights to any folder. Similar to the roles, with permissions, the permissions are automatically inherited when you create new subfolders as you go down. So if you create another folder there, 2.4, shared something else, mechanical, you don't need to worry about applying those permissions again because they will be automatically inherited. That's the way BIM 360 works. So let's look at uploading some documents. So let's say that you are working on a project that might be 50% of the way through its detailed design phase, and you want to jump up in the cloud and get your project moving up in BIM 360. The quickest way to get any existing documentation that you have up into the cloud is to use what we call our title block templates. Now, title block templates uses our OCR reading technology. Essentially what that means is it's just going to help you automate the file naming of all of the documents that you are uploading to BIM 360. And it does that by extracting text, or it reads intelligently, can read a PDF. It can look at a title block and it'll extract the information out that it needs. So sort of just sidestep a little bit, you'll notice that inside of BIM 360, there's 2 areas where you can store information. There's the plans area, and we also have the project files area. The difference between the 2 is the plans area is a little bit more intelligent. This is where we run our OCR reading technology. But for example, if you were to upload a multi-page PDF into the plans area, it will extract out that PDF to single pages. And the same thing if you were to upload a DWG with multiple layouts, each of those layouts will be extracted out to its own drawing. So once we're in the plans area, we've selected the folder that we want to publish or upload our documents to. We can hit the upload button. Just to show you, this is the list of PDFs that we are going to work with today. These have come from Revit, so I apologize if you guys are not Revit users. This is just something I'd previously set up. So as you go through this workflow, it's going to tell you what it's doing. So it's going to scan the drawings, get its drawing names, get the drawing names out, get the drawing numbers out. It's going to extract that data and then publish it back into BIM 360. So as you upload a series of drawings, it's going to ask you for a template. The first time you do this, you won't have a template, which is fine, because it will ask you to define one. So what that looks like is pretty straightforward. You can just follow the instructions. So it's asking you to select the entire title block area. So here we are selecting this area. You have to do this if you've got a horizontal title block or a vertical title block. You'll need to have two different templates. So once you've selected your area, give the title block a name, the template a name, so you can reuse it later on down the line. And then you have to select the area where the drawing number is and do the same thing for the drawing title. Once you hit save on that, BIM 360 will analyze the list of PDFs that you are going to upload. You can select them all here, and it'll run through that list, select a template, and it'll extract out all the data. This might take a while depending on how many drawings you are uploading. I think there is a limit on the maximum number you can do at one time. I can't recall at this point in time what that limit is, but it's in the hundreds, that's for sure. So once that has happened, it'll publish, and what you end up with is the drawings, the PDFs that you've uploaded in BIM 360 with their drawing number, the drawing title assigned to them, all kind of automated. So you can see this image here is what the PDF looked like before we uploaded it, and this is what it now looks like once it's in BIM 360. So probably my favorite part of BIM 360 docs is the activity log. So in the back end, everything gets tracked inside of BIM 360. So there's really no hiding. So in this list here, you can see that the last thing I had done was publish all of those documents that I just showed you. This will look at if drawings have been deleted. It will look at if people have opened drawings. Everything gets captured here, which is really, really important. So we've kind of gone through quickly there how we can look at setting up roles and inviting members into our projects and into our accounts. We've worked through the fundamentals of setting up a project. This lets us now move into the next phase, which is getting into the BIM 360 design collaboration for Civil 3D. So I'm just going to grab a mouthful of water. If anyone has any questions, feel free to take this second to just type them out in the Q&A, and then I'll keep going. So BIM 360 design collaboration for Civil 3D, it is a bit of a mouthful. I'm going to talk to you guys today about what it is and how it works. And you're going to see DWG file locking, you're going to see the desktop connector, we're going to look at data shortcuts, and we're also going to look at how we can work with xrefs in this cloud-based workflow. So the design collaboration module for Civil 3D was released at the end of October last year. You do need a BIM 360 design license to access it. That is very important. And you do need to have Civil 3D 2020.2 as a minimum to use it as well. And fundamentally, it comes down to managing data in the cloud, managing your civil data in the cloud. So a slide I like to talk about is putting data at the center, and this is something we are doing at Autodesk. So whether it is using our connector to ArcGIS to publish GIS information around, or we are using BIM 360 to store our Civil 3D DWGs or our Revit models or whatever, once we begin to put data at the center of a project, then we can start to break down some of these silos that we see through the 4 stages of a project lifecycle. So this design collaboration module really plays into that data at the center philosophy, and yeah, it's quite nice. So This is a bit of a graphic, pretty standard graphic. I apologize, it is buildings focused, not necessarily civil with that big building in the middle, but you know, this is a typical project that would live in the cloud. You will have different disciplines contributing to one single source of truth in the middle, living in BIM 360 up in the cloud, either using Revit or Civil 3D. But for today's example, we are really focusing in on this civil area using the design collaboration tools. So fundamentally, and it's important to show this slide because I've had a lot of people ask me this, fundamentally we are working with file locking and file locking a DWG. Now, people have asked me, does this mean you can have multiple people working inside of one DWG? The answer is no. If you are familiar with the Revit workflow for BIM 360 design, you can have multiple people inside of a Revit model. That's not how this is set up. The nature of a DWG, you can't have that. So you can't have multiple people inside of one DWG if you're curious. Because files are able to be locked down, you can see who has that, if that file has been locked inside of Civil 3D, but you can also see that from the web browser. So you can hover over that little padlock there and you can see that that has been locked by me. Again, really good visual way to see who has what drawings open when we are working remotely. So if we start to look at the workflow itself, as you can see, I'm using 2020.3 here, but you need 2020.2 as an absolute minimum. Civil 3D will start to look a little bit different. So you can see the list of DWGs we have here. Some of them are stored on the cloud, some of them are stored locally. That gives you an indication that you are now being able to work with cloud drawings. If you go to the BIM 360 tab here, you will see that you have access to your different hubs, which we talked about at the start, that you can come in and out of your different businesses, as well as all of the projects that you have access to. Now, once you drill down through your folder structure, you will see the DWGs that you can in fact open. And if we bring the browser across, you'll see that that has been replicated there. So you can see there's 2 DWGs here, and that is represented in the browser there. So we also have information here that we can look at, such as if the drawing's been locked, as I've spoken about, such as if it's been cached, so if it's been saved to your local drive, which is how this all works, as well as when it was last modified and things like that. It's also worth mentioning that you can use your Windows Explorer to drill down through BIM 360. And just to show you how to do that, I mean, yeah, you can see those DWGs through the browser that I've just showed, as well as now through Windows Explorer, as well as in that Civil 3D main view, which we've just got there. So yeah, there's all 3 of those, the 3 locations there that you can view your models. So this drawing is locked. It's because I've got it open. So let's jump into that drawing and let's look at adding some data shortcuts. So pretty straightforward to do this. It works the same way as Civil 3D does when it's not on the cloud. You need to set your working folder. In this case, I'm defining a folder that lives on BIM 360. And then we need to, you can see that it does reference BIM 360 there. And then we need to use our template to set up the data shortcuts folder itself. So we give it a name. We're using that particular project template. You guys might have your own in-house that you do rely on. Now what you'll see is happening, and this is probably a little bit different, is we're using the desktop connector. And the desktop connector is a good little tool that you use to see or to monitor the activity that is happening between your local machine and the cloud. So you can see we have some activity happening here. There's an XML file that's being synced. This is sending that data shortcut up to BIM 360. It shouldn't take too long. It's a pretty small file. That's happened. Get rid of that. Bring back our web browser, and you can see we have the data shortcuts folder created, as well as all of the subfolders that we have specified inside of that template. So you don't need to create any of these folders manually inside of BIM 360. It does it automatically if you are using a template. And then the last thing we need to do is to create some data shortcuts. So again, pretty straightforward. There's nothing really specific to the cloud here. We're going to select a surface in 2 different alignments. Again, we'll look at the desktop connector. It's going to come up and we'll see the data that is getting published up and down, or published up to BIM 360, I apologize. So you can see there it's publishing multiple files. That doesn't take long because they are quite small as they are XMLs. Come across to the web. We can go now through our shortcuts folder and we'll see that we have 2 alignments there that we've just published, and we've got our surface there. They're XML, they're really small in size, so that upload is really quick. It doesn't take that long at all. So that's kind of data shortcuts in a nutshell. Now we'll have a look at how we can start to use xrefs. And there's a couple of different methods here. What I'm going to do is upload an xref to BIM 360. And the way I'm going to do that is by simple drag and drop inside of Windows Explorer. So we've navigated through to the folder we want, and I'm just going to do a drag and drop. You could do this through the browser if you wanted to, but I'm just showing you another way of uploading DWGs, straight and simple. So you can see there's a structural culvert here, and this transferring the files window is telling you that there is a connection happening between your computer and BIM 360. If you look at the desktop connector, it would be telling you that as well. We jump over to the browser just to show you that there is that DWG there that has been uploaded via that drag and drop method. Fire up the xref command, pretty straightforward. Navigate through to BIM 360, and we can select the xref that we have just published by drag and drop method and load it into our workspace, as I will do right now. Once the DWG comes in as an xref, if you were to click on it, there you can see the pathing. So you can see that pathing is definitely pointing to BIM 360. You know that drawing has come from the cloud. It's not, living on a local file. And you can look at that folder structure there through the browser or through Windows Explorer to see that pathing. The second way of working with xrefs, which is a really nice way, it's probably one of my favorite features of BIM 360 Design for Civil. So what I've done is I've created a new drawing called Site Planning, and this has been saved locally, for example, and I'm going to upload an xref that lives on my C drive. So in this case, it's living on OneDrive. It's not on my desktop, but it's definitely not on BIM 360. So yeah, this could be coming from a file server, or it could be coming from anywhere, but I'm going to show you what happens when you work in this particular way. So the xref has been loaded into the drawing. I'm going to do a file save as of this particular site planning drawing, and I'm going to save it for the first time up in the cloud. So I'm going to navigate through to my folder structure, create a new folder called site plan, and I'm going to dump that drawing in there, and it's going to kind of upload that site plan drawing, but also upload the xref that goes with it. So you could check the desktop connector and see that upload happening. You can see the site planning DWG, it's doing its thing. Now, I think we have to close this drawing first. Is that what I do? Yep, close this drawing. Now, jump back over to the browser, you can see we have the DWG that's been uploaded, but I also want to talk specifically about this related data folder. So if you were to upload a drawing that has a localized xref, BIM 360 will replicate that structure from your file server or from your desktop and put the DWG in this related data folder. Because it recognizes that, hey, this is not a DWG that lives on BIM 360. It's come from somewhere. We're uploading it to. We need to put it somewhere in the cloud. So just to show you this pathing, so you can see I'm navigating through to that FY21 infrastructure folder into the webinars there, and the x-site shed is the DWG there. the pathing in Windows Explorer matches the pathing that you see beneath that related data folder. Now, what you can do with BIM 360 is physically move that DWG. So, it's not best practice to keep that xref there. You definitely want to move it to the xref folder or whatever your company's design standards suggest. So we've used the cloud to move this DWG. Now, if you're working remotely, someone who is not using Civil 3D can move those xrefs around. And this is the beauty of the workflow, is that now if someone or anyone in your project opens up that DWG, the site planning drawing, the xref will it will stay in there. The pathing will update itself in the background. You can see here that because we've uploaded it, we're opening it for the first time, you get that transferring files window. But there's our xref. It's pretty small. I haven't made anything too complicated, just to keep it basic for today's session. But when you look at the pathing of this xref, you can see that it is gone and repathed itself to point to BIM 360. So this xref did come from my local. I've saved it to the cloud. I've moved it around up in BIM 360, and it's updated the pathing for me. So it's a really intelligent way of working with the DWGs that do live in BIM 360. So, if you've got remote teams, no one's going to have missing xrefs anymore because the cloud can maintain that for you. So it's a really nice feature that we have there. Now, the last step in this process, just to kind of close things out, I'm actually just going to create some of the data shortcuts in a new drawing. So we started off by creating some data shortcuts, the surface and the two alignments. I'm just going to create those references in this new site planning drawing that I've just created and just uploaded to the cloud, just to sort of close that loop of this workflow. So you can see here, we'll bring in that alignment, and those data shortcuts are coming from BIM 360. So in a nutshell, that is the workflow around BIM 360 design collaboration for civil. It's pretty straightforward. It's not too complex to understand. What I do also want to talk about is some versioning, and I'll talk a little bit more about this. But every time you upload a new DWG, you'll get a new version, which is different to revisioning. And there's a nice little feature inside of BIM 360 docs that lets you compare DWGs or different versions of a drawing. So I'm overlaying two different versions. So I've got V1 and V2. One goes red, one goes blue, and you can see the changes just like that. And there's a little bit more to it in terms of 3D models and stuff, which I'll talk to. So the third part of today is to talk about now some of these processes in BIM 360. So we've started off by setting up a project. We're now collaborating in the cloud, and now we're doing some down the line processes on those documents. So first off is the ability to work with Microsoft Office. So inside of the browser, you can actually upload and store Word docs, Excel files, and PowerPoint models, PowerPoint files. There is some limitations on the file size, but the beauty is that you can have schedules, or you can have design reports or fees or whatever it is, and you can have people working on those in the browser, as opposed to having to email documents around to different teams. Markups inside of BIM 360, as you would expect, there's tools in there. So we've uploaded some of those PDFs through the OCR reading technology. Now we can start to mark them up. You can work with polylines, pretty straightforward. Adding text, callouts with leaders, as you would come to expect. You can add revision clouds. You can even do some general, drawing stuff, so rectangles and closed polylines and things like that. And then some nice things around colors and creating fill patterns and things like that. Also important that markups don't need to just be done in a browser. They can be done via mobile apps, both Android and iOS. So when it comes to markups, everything gets captured. So if you look at a drawing here, you'll see there's a column there of data that says markup, and once that's kind of illuminated, you know that there is a markup attached to that drawing. Once you dig into that a little bit, you can see who created the markup and when they created it, whether it's private or published. So you have the flexibility to keep markups just for yourself, or you can publish them out to the rest of the team. And you can even see, you can go back through the history and look at markups that are archived. So, you know, let's say a drawing has some markups. If those markups get complete, the drawing gets issued, you can still go back and find those markups on that drawing. So version comparison, I talked about comparing. I showed a very quick example of showing a 2D sort of comparison, but we can also compare 3D models, and you can compare the physical geometry as well as the metadata and the location of that that geometry. So you can also export to CSV if you ever needed to. But what that looks like here is, you can see in this box on the right, we have 67 items that have been added, and we have 305 that have been removed and 61 that have been modified, and they're color coordinated: green, red, and yellow. Now you can see that we have some red lights that have been removed, we've got some green lights that have been added, and this is comparing two separate revisions. So we've got V4 and V6. It's a little bit hard to see that there. But yeah, we're comparing two of the same drawings, two different versions, and BIM 360 is telling us what has changed since you've uploaded the two different versions. The second view here is sort of just showing a tree list of everything that's changed. So you can see we've got some 3D solids that have come in and left. We've got blocks, we've got civil 3D entities, we've got polylines, things like that. So there's a lot of information that gets captured, you know, and you can find out what things are. So in this case, it's a corridor here that we're looking at that's been modified since we last uploaded it. And, you know, we can even drill down into the changes of where it starts and where it ends and things like that. So we can also use BIM 360 for issues. So, you know, as opposed to covering a drawing with markups, we can drop these pins on a 3D model or a 2D drawing and have a issue get created that is trackable. You can invite more people into it and things like that. Issues are customizable. You can have them based on different disciplines, or you could do it based on clash detection, for example. And there is a workflow associated. So you can have, you open up an issue, you answer it, and you close it. There is a dashboard that you can view all the past issues from a management perspective, and you can even have notifications of when issues change status through a workflow, or, you know, if someone gets invited to participate in an issue. So the whole idea around this is trying to work through these issues in the browser as opposed to having to go out to Excel. And I've been involved in projects where you will have, you know, a series of PDFs on one screen and then an Excel document on the other, and you have to, you know, type in the drawing name that you are making a comment on. You have to put your initials, you have to describe your thing, and it's two separate things. Whereas BIM 360 and issues, you're placing the issue directly on that particular drawing, and there's some intelligence around that as well. So all of the issues are tracked. You can search them. You can see whether they are open or answered or closed. You can see the title, which is an obvious one, the type that it is related to, who the issue has been assigned to, what company, when the due date is for any action, and if there's attachments or comments that have been added to that issue. So if you click an issue, this is kind of what it looks like. It's really important to know here that it automatically will link to a document. So if you've put a issue, dropped a pin on a particular drawing, the user can now click this blue link and take them directly to that drawing. So they don't need to flick through 100 PDFs to find the correct drawing that they're looking for. They can get taken directly to that issue or taken to that drawing based on the issue. You can add attachments, so you can take photos or do whatever else if you need to add sketches, things like that. And there's also an activity log, so you can watch a history of that issue, who's commented on it, who's invited people in, and you can use some of these the @ symbols to mention someone, like you do on Facebook or LinkedIn, tagging someone to invite them in to come and contribute to an issue that has been created. So issues are able to be managed again on devices, not just in the web. And this is just a screenshot of issues on an iPad. So we can also perform document reviews. So this is, setting up a series of reviews to go through a number of gates, whether it is, from person to person or discipline to discipline before drawings get issued. You can have a whole range of numbers. So you can start from a 1-step through to a 6-step approval, as well as some group approvals. You keep it as simple or as complicated as you like. You can add some labels. So if a drawing is rejected, you can add some information to say return it to the drafting team or whatever. And a nice little feature here is that you can copy documents that get approved to another folder. So I'll explain how that works in a little bit here. So a pretty standard process would be to have a drafting check, have an engineering check, and then that would be ready to be issued to the document control team. So we could set up these review workflows that once it's approved, it will physically move those drawings into the next folder. So we'll go from drafting to engineering into the outgoing folder for document control. And then, if people are subscribing to these folders, you can get some automatic notifications to know that it's your turn to review a drawing. It's a pretty nice feature. So setting up a workflow, give it a name, fairly straightforward. You define who the initiator can be. In this case, you can't have a BIM manager initiate a drafting workflow. We're limiting it to a drafter based on their role. In this case, the approver is a BIM manager, although I don't think that would be the case. You can set the amount of time that they're allowed to review it. And again, setting up this so the drawing will move from this drafting folder to an engineering check folder once it's been approved. So then we get over to engineering, same sort of thing. Once that has been approved, we can then move it to the issued ready folder, and then it can go out the door. So transmittals is the logical next phase of a workflow. So once, if you've set up an approval process and we've just gone through all of those stages, then we can create transmittals and issue them to other people on a team. So select the documents you want, create a transmittal, give it a title, define the recipients. In this case, we're going to send it to a few people. You can see the drawings that you've got that you are going to transmit here. You can add a message if necessary, and then you can publish that transmittal out to the wider team. So getting towards the end now, there are some nice little additional things inside of BIM 360. So we have a dashboard at the start called Project Home, and you can, this is customizable. You can change the cards here in the card library, but you can look at project issues that are outstanding. You can look at RFIs and submittals. You could also take it a little bit further, and if you've got multiple companies working, you can start to see which company has the most issues outstanding at one point in time. And there's just a bit of intelligence around this to help manage a project or give a bit more insight into the health of the project. These insights can be reported out to the wider team, or whether it's a project director or something like that. So, to do that, you can define the type of report that you want to export out. You can look at the history of time, so 30 days, 1 week, 2 months, whatever it needs to be. And then you can automate the generation of the schedule. So, I've just skipped a bit here. So we've defined our members, going to put a message in, but yes, important here is you can automate this. So every week you could publish a schedule automatically and have it issued to the directors or whoever it is on this particular project. Run now, and it'll go off, and it will track the health of the project and provide the relevant stakeholders this information, because we've captured all this information through the whole design of this project. So coming right up to the end now, before we get into some Q&A, I guess just a quick summary is that from the first part of today's webinar around setting up administration and setting up a project and setting up hubs, that roles and permissions are really important there. Whether you are assigning people to companies or assigning people to individual roles, the way to sort of automate that and make that as most efficient as possible is to spend some time defining and working out what's best for your organization. Then when we get into the design module for Civil 3D, we've talked about the data shortcuts and how they can work, as well as the two unique ways of working with xrefs, especially having that related data folder that is created in the browser, and you can actually move those xrefs around. And then getting through some of the processes down the line, such as being able to work with Microsoft Office, adding markups, issues, creating those review workflows, and then ultimately transmittals to be issued out. And I guess the most important thing about everything that we're talking about with BIM 360 is that or the history is tracked of everything. There's an activity log for everything. So no longer are you having to trawl through emails to see what was happening on a particular design issue. You know, the whole thought process behind BIM 360 is that it is that single source of truth. We are putting data at the center, as I talked about, and that now extends out to being able to, you know, attach BIM 360, attach Civil 3D data, and include that in the collaboration on these projects. So with that, I'll check out the Q&A window and see if we've got some questions here. There are no questions that I can see. Unless I can't see something. Shane, is there any?
No, thank you, Adam. Yeah, at the moment there are no questions, but normally we invite the questions and then people will start sort of popping in there.
Cool.
Can only guess everybody's watched in shock and awe as you've answered every question they could have had. So really good presentation. Thank you, Adam. Everybody, while you're madly popping in your questions, Adam, I would like to thank you again for your time. Really appreciate that great sort of insight into what BIM 360 can do. It was great to see, you know, the fact that it's got admin control, version history on documents and drawings, a good, you know, the best connection you can have to Civil 3D. Linking back to document management, and then the version controls, review approval process. So, you know, customers, if you are interested in exploring BIM 360, there's certainly some links about. I might just flip across to a couple of links that I have to show people while the questions are madly coming in. So
I'll stop sharing my screen for you.
I think I can steal directly.
Okay. So just before you do, oh, you've done it. Okay. But yeah, if anyone in the audience wants to reach out to me directly on anything I've spoken about today, you know, you can check out, you can grab me on LinkedIn or email me directly, adam.walmsley@autodesk.com.
Sorry, Adam, would you like to screen share that while you to show? I can hand you screen back. I was
okay,
a bit premature in taking.
Sorry, if I stop sharing?
I've stopped sharing, so you can start. So.
I'm not sharing anymore. Okay, hold on one second.
The power of the host, everybody. I stole it from Adam while he wasn't looking. Apologies for that.
Yeah, so there's my email address if you guys need it. Happy to flag any questions you might have or discuss anything that you've heard today or anything you haven't heard today, for that matter. Shane, were you going to show something?
Yeah, not really anything earth-shattering. I really just wanted to pop up some links for people. So hopefully my screen is showing. So I've got the broad summary of what Adam showed. Adam showed a lot more than what's noted there on the left. You can go in and look at trial options. Autodesk have some extensions on that with COVID-19 that you can read up on that other link. Everything you've seen today has been recorded, so we will publish that up onto our YouTube page. So we will post up onto YouTube here. Just in terms of webcasts, our next one coming up next week is AutoCAD tips and tricks. So if you did come to the first session that Selwyn Pendergast put on, he realized that he still had a whole nother web session of tips and tricks to share with people. Those sessions are always great because everybody uses AutoCAD in a different way. I've got no doubt that if Adam and I sat down and Adam cracked open AutoCAD, there'd be at least 5 things that he does in AutoCAD that I would have had no idea about. So they're always fun sessions. Otherwise, this web page here, resources, webcasts, is where we sort of hold what's coming up in terms of webcasts. So if you are looking at what's coming up in the coming weeks, that's it. We're sort of doing a webcast a week. I do encourage customers, if you've got any ideas of webcasts you'd really like us to do, drop us an email. So certainly if you want to know more about BIM 360, Adam has graciously donated his email address and contacts, so you can contact Adam. You can also obviously come through us, and we'll help you out and work with Adam for anything we don't know the answer to. I think we got a question.
We've got 2. I can see 2. There's one in the chat and there's one in the Q&A. So I'll answer both. They're both the same. So your question does make absolute sense, but yeah, you do need a personal license to access or to interact with BIM 360 docs. If you just want to play around with the document management stuff that I talked about, you only need a BIM 360 docs license. But if you want to play with the design collaboration and share DWGs the way that I showed, you need a BIM 360 design license. And to access, there is a way to publish, or sorry, there is a way to share some information out to someone who hasn't got a BIM 360 license, but that's only for like a viewing only type of thing. So I could upload a PDF, for example. I can create a public link, share that with you, but you're only able to view that drawing or maybe download it. You can't really add any markups or anything like that. So I think that answers both of the questions that that are here. That they both sound very similar. Yes, you can still to summarize, you can still access BIM 360 data without a license, but someone has to create a public link to a particular file, and you're very limited to what you can do. You can't add markups or create issues or do anything like that. If you have a BIM 360 docs license, then you can certainly be invited into a project and then have the ability to do all those issues and workflow approvals and that whole range of things.
Thanks, Adam. That's great. So I'm guessing the question was sort of that split between the 100% sort of design contributors to that data, and then those other staff members of management who would just go in and approve. What you're saying is all of those parties should have BIM docs, BIM 360 docs, and then they can all do markups and do that full sort of assessment of
Correct.
For approvals.
Yeah. So you could have, people that are reviewing and approving drawings. They would only need a docs license. Whereas if you're a Civil 3D user and you want to start publishing tins and saving data shortcuts to the cloud, you need that design license.
Terrific. All right. Well, I don't think any other questions have come in while we've been chatting away. So, look, I think we'll wrap it out there, Adam. Again, thank you very much for presenting BIM 360 to the audience. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Hope you all got something out of it. As Adam said, we're always happy to chat. So you've got Adam's details, but you can certainly call into Civil Survey Solutions. Happy to chat with you about anything you may want to know about. So thank you all very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, Adam.
All right. See you later. Thanks.